And welcome to the SpartanMag.com VCast. Jim Comparoni, Paul Konyndyk, Michigan State. And Michigan State loses 24-17. You guys saw it. Tough game for Michigan State. Played well, dominated the early going. Reading the message board at SpartanMag.com, a lot of people are, upset. Of course, you can have some people talking about coaching and things like that. But, Michigan State tried a few things, didn't work. Michigan did a good job with some tricks and some wrinkles. They were very desperate. They capitalized, got it done. But in some ways, it's kind of nice to feel like if you're Michigan State, like you should have beaten Michigan, and to feel frustrated again that you should have won. When you think about the last 2 years and how they weren't close. Maybe last year not close in this game. 2 years ago they were until halftime. But overall, Michigan State had opportunities, Paul, not only to win this game, but opportunities to really change their season and really kick Michigan to the curb a little bit and let all that slip away.
Yeah, I think I can understand why some people.
Yeah, right.
I can understand why people are disappointed, because I really feel like this is a game where Michigan State came into this game feeling that they should win, that they would win, and that if they executed their game plan, they could get the job done. And some of the stuff that they did on that first drive, when it stalled out, they did everything they needed to do to move the ball down the field. I thought Nate Carter was amazing. He played. He ran inspired.
He did.
This is his best, most physical performance. Mm-hmm. He had the best balance I've ever seen him have. He did his part. And I can understand why people were upset on that first drive, because you're going down the field, and then once you get right around the goal line, then you do a couple, the Montorie Foster run, and I just feel like,
on that play, I heard Strayhorn talking about that. He thought that if Montorie had held up and waited for his blocking a little bit more, he would have scored. But everybody was so amped up and going a little harder. And
I don't think so.
No,
because I feel like we saw that another time, like with another similar perimeter run, and with a wide receiver, and I felt like, one of the things that Michigan State did against Iowa, what they did a lot on that first drive in this game, is they did some nice vertical stuff. They got good push and they had upfield. And where this rushing offense, in my opinion, has struggled is when they go wide, when there's not like the necessarily the upfield push. And I felt like that blocking wasn't. I felt like that blocking wasn't guaranteed. It's not like on those blocks. I'll have to go back and look at it. It happens so fast in the press box. But seeing it real time, I didn't feel like those were really like plus blocks, or you got a lot of guys flowing in that direction. I don't think it fooled anybody. Let's put it that way. And this Michigan team has good athletes, and I just felt like, even if it was a great play, even if Strayhorn's right, even if he's right, I just felt like the way Michigan State was moving the ball, the way they were doing it, the way Nathan Carter was running the ball. And we saw him make some guys miss for the first time.
Yeah.
Not for the first time, but I'm talking about in like critical situations where you're spinning out of a guaranteed TFL. Mm-hmm. And getting to that line and just making a big push. I thought they got too cute, and that's one of my takeaways from this game. I thought that first drive, maybe they don't score, maybe they do, but I feel like I would rather see them do like caveman, like what was working. And the other thing
then Duran was first and goal of the 6.
Yeah, and the other thing I didn't like was the onside kick. To me that made zero sense. I know Smith's saying he wanted stuff to happen, but what you do in a situation like that, if you don't recover it, then you're giving up field position. You just score to go within. You just score to go within 6 points.
16-10
at that point, and they recover, and all of a sudden they got a great punter too, by the way, and we saw him throughout the night. He puts a lot of air under that ball. And then all of a sudden you've got, I think the next two possessions, Michigan State's inside the Michigan inside their own 20-yard line when they're starting out, right backed up against the goal line. So you can say, hey, we wanted to try to make something happen, but if you don't make something happen, then you're giving your team bad field position, right in the teeth of this crowd out here, and it was super vocal. And the one thing I do like about being here in Michigan is you can hear what the crowd's like, because they have the windows in the press box open. But it was loud out there, and it just puts you in a difficult situation. And when they're backed up against the goal line, that's when those 5-yard penalties kill you. Yeah. Michigan State had some of those, and I just felt like Michigan State didn't need to be as cute as they were in this game. So if you get that first drive touchdown, you don't fumble the ball going into halftime, then you're right there in this game.
Yeah, there were just some little turning point, tipping point plays like that altered the scoreboard. I mean, stats are for losers. Michigan State outgains them like 350 to 260. To your point, if you're going for an onside kick to steal a possession, that's normally something you do in a game that's in the 30s or 40s when it's everybody scoring and you just want to steal a possession. Against this Michigan offense and the way the Michigan offense have struggled all year, you're 16 to 10, you got some momentum, kick them deep, make them go 80 yards. In hindsight, against an offense that's been struggling and all of a sudden gets a little tighter in here, 16-10, open the door. They're aggressive. He's going to be aggressive. I mean, he's a guy that's gone for it in fourth down at Oregon State a lot more than we've seen so far at Michigan State. That's coming this year. I mean, when it was 4th and 2 at the opening drive when Michigan State was getting ready to go for it on fourth down, I'm thinking to myself, man, I don't know about that. He was asked in hindsight, should he have called timeout? He says, yeah, we missed the field goal. I'd love to call timeout, burn a timeout there early, go for it on 4th and 2, got a chance to score. But honestly, I got to say, I was like, man, I don't think going for it right here is the right thing. I think you go up 3-0, end up missing the field goal anyway. But they're going to be aggressive, and he was going to be aggressive. Maybe he would have scored. Michigan State would have scored and gone up 7-0, and I would have been wrong. So I'm going to be right and wrong on a lot of those throughout the course of the year and the decades. But on that one, I agree with you, the onside kick. But that's why it works sometimes, if it's a surprise. As it turns out, Michigan State got a defensive 3 and out. But like you said, Michigan State got the ball back at their own 17, got a false start, now it's their own 12, couldn't go anywhere with it. So the onside kick didn't work, but it didn't kill you, but it did put you in a negative field position situation.
Michigan's defense was playing pretty good. They got better.
Be good, yeah.
They were on their heels in the first. That's the thing. That first drive reminded me so much of that Ohio State game. Where Michigan State comes out, they move the ball down the field.
11 rushes for 47 yards on that first drive.
Yeah, and a huge disappointment because this is really a game much like the Boston College game where Michigan State goes away from this saying, hey, we should have won this game. This is like Iowa last year and in some ways, but Michigan was better in a lot of ways than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah,
and I'll say that. So first off, I'm not going to go out there and say, hey, Michigan was crap and Michigan State out-crapped them and they lost to an inferior team. No, Michigan did some good things today. I thought.
I wasn't surprised that Michigan was good. I wasn't surprised.
But they did some good things, and the one thing that Michigan State could not defend is when they went with Alex Ojiri and they had the extra man to account for, and he's a lot more slippery in terms of getting to the outside. And so that he had
a big run, which fueled their first touchdown drive. Because prior to that first touchdown drive, they got to the end of the first half. They hadn't crossed midfield yet. They get the one drive, he gets loose for about 30 yards down the sideline. They go and they punch it in. They capitalize on their opportunities.
Yeah, and 2 of their scoring drives, Michigan State had them in 3rd and long, and they let them off the field. For that first touchdown drive. Michigan State had them, I think, in 3rd and 10, 3rd and 9. They convert. I think they had an 11-yard gain. I can't remember who it was, but it was a completion over the middle. But so Michigan did some really good things. And Michigan State, when you look back at this, if you're a defense, you're like, hey, we had them right where we wanted them.
Sure.
And Michigan did a lot better job on 3rd down than I expected them to do. I thought Donovan Edwards. I thought he did a good job in terms of running with some physicality tonight, and I thought that the quarterback change with Davis Warren, I thought, it makes you wonder, if that was a knee-jerk decision earlier in the season of a first-year head coach, being panicking because his quarterback looked bad against some good teams and not giving him a chance to kind of mature a little bit because he looked good tonight. I think his receivers looked a lot better. I mean, let's face it, Michigan had one wide receiver with more than 100 yards receiving. Coming into this game, and those guys actually looked decent tonight. Samaj Morgan, the tight end play was really good. I thought the passing was accurate. Michigan State had chances to win this game. They didn't do it, but
had them on the ropes early. When you're out gaining a team 140-17 through the first 18 minutes, whatever it was real close to being 14-0 Michigan State. Right. And in retrospect, it needed to be 14-0. You leave them in the game, they're going to answer, get everything, get everyone all riled up. But this Michigan team, as beleaguered as they've been, if Michigan State would have gone up 14-0 in that fashion with physicality, Michigan would have had not only trouble coming back from a 14-point deficit, but just from the imagery of the whole thing. But Michigan State did not put it on their throat when they had a chance right there.
Yeah, and Michigan in the second quarter, I thought they started playing more physically. I thought their defensive line, started getting some penetration and making it a little bit harder to run the ball. And I thought the offensive line was getting movement a little bit on Michigan State's defensive line. But one of the things that really hurt Michigan State coming out of halftime, trailing by a couple points, but giving up that touchdown right out of the half. You talk about things that really kill teams. First drive of the game, right before halftime, coming out of half, and Michigan State didn't get theirs on the first drive of the game, but giving that up in the third quarter, that's a game changer for Michigan State, because then you're playing really on your heels. Now they had a chance to come back, and anyone who's down on Aiden Childs in this game, I'm kind of like, I'm not with you, because he showed a lot of poise in this game. He played pretty efficient in this game, and I'm not sure exactly what happened on that 4th and 5, because to me it looked like there's too many when guys are in the same area. When too many guys are in the same area, to me it's like, okay, I haven't seen many Brian Lindgren plays where there's not multiple tiered options, and I kind of wonder what happened on that play.
It was man-to-man, two safeties deep, man under, so they had a lot of coverage, only rushed 4. And they did a good job in man-to-man, locking up, which I think Michigan can do, and I've been surprised watching them all year that they played so much soft zone in some of those games against Minnesota and Washington, and not as much against Illinois. And on that play, they played man-to-man. They can play man-to-man. I think they'd be better if I can coach their team. And if I can give them a suggestion, if they play more man-to-man, I think they can handle it. But they played man-to-man. No one was open, so Childs kind of elongates it and rolls out a little bit. So then it's scramble rules. So then you have, long routes coming deep, or long routes coming back, and short routes going deep. So you're going to have some of that crossover in terms of people. Kenny Jordan, in terms of people in the same area. Kenny Jordan was saying that he thought Childs could have kept it. And
I felt like it too, but
gained the first down on that.
It's a risky one. It's like one of those things where
tight.
It's one of those things where it looks like there's all that real estate, and maybe it was because there was so much traffic back in the.
And man-to-man, it's harder for a defense to close when they're man-to-man on a quarterback.
Yeah, and I felt like I kind of wondered to myself, like, I agree with Kenny. I felt like, and I told Jake Liskawa that I asked Jake, I was like, it looked to me like he had room. What do you think? And he said, well, he didn't know, because he's probably doing something for you at that point, but. I think he could have, and maybe that's something you do when you're like a veteran quarterback, when you have more opportunities to have experiences like this. The fact of the matter, in my opinion, is he let him down the field.
Yeah, and he's a distributor, so he was thinking someone's going to come open, and these are split-second decisions in the front of 100,000 people. But if he tucks and runs that thing, and he picks it up, and State scores.
It's 5 yards.
And State go for 2 to win if they would have scored.
No, I wouldn't.
Do you think they would have?
Maybe.
We might be talking about that they went for 2 and didn't make it.
Yeah, it's.
But this place was getting pretty tight. I mean, Michigan State down 14, very patient, methodical, running the ball, get down there, score, gets the ball back with plenty of time, and it was looking pretty good for Michigan State after Nathan Carter made that great catch and spin and run and breaking tackles down the sideline. It looked like State was going in, and what a moment that would have been. It was close to being a great comeback for Michigan State, and it was close for Michigan State getting a 14-0 lead early. That's why it's all about missed opportunities, Paul.
Yeah, I mean, a couple things, if I'm looking for positives in this game, the biggest positive in my mind is you got, for a second week in a row against a different style of defense. Iowa, they rushed for 215. In this game against Michigan, rushed for 187 or whatever, something like that. And not only that, but you're also using the short passing game to the running backs, which is kind of like a modified, some of the run stuff. Nate Carter was really good on some of that stuff. I thought Childs did a really nice job on some of those screen passes, throwing with accuracy. But I feel like Aiden Childs, with the exception of that rollout and getting stripped, he did a really nice job. He was efficient in this game. This is the second straight game we've seen him efficient. Now, could he have gone for some receivers more? I thought he balanced risk and reward. He had that one throw to Montori Foster that was a tough throw.
Third and long slot fade, and it was open and dropped it in there nicely. I mean, that's the only time they went deep all night, Paul. This is a team that's gone deep a lot this year.
Yeah, and then he had the other one on the sideline to Jack Velling, I think it was. I can't remember which side, But
it was like a less deep out, like 15, 20-yard out route. That was pretty good. But I wonder if they're going to think, man, we should have went deep a little bit more against Michigan just to see what it looks like.
Maybe.
With Marsh and
maybe, but you know what? It's like
hindsight's always.
Yeah, and you wonder, because I wonder.
Their game plan was to pound it, and they were pounding it pretty good.
Yeah, but the thing that pounding it allows you to do typically is to go deep, and this is a team that likes to go deep. This is an offense that likes to go deep, and you've got receivers that I think are like built to go deep.
It's the fewest deep shots they've taken all year by far.
I'm sorry. Hey, I've been up since 5:45 this morning and watched 4 softball games, and I've got this raspy old cough that, maybe it's COPD. I don't know. I shouldn't joke about that, but
Now, Michigan State going, after Michigan goes down, scores, missed the extra point at 7-6. You got the ball back with about 30 seconds left at your own 25-yard line. And you can see what they're doing. And Jonathan Smith said as much. We went for a running play, and if something popped, we had timeouts, and we were going to get over the ball and go quick with something. But they did have a lot of timeouts. I guess you save it. I mean, after that 15-yard run, stops the clock, I guess you don't go – I guess you don't use a timeout right away, but they had 3. In retrospect, but you're keeping your defense on the heels. I see why you're trying to snap it and go. But in retrospect, you can call timeout and talk it over a little bit, but you don't want to give the defense a break anyway. But I was like, we all know that there's plenty of coaches that would just take a knee right there, including going back to George Perlis and get booed for doing it. This was a lot of coaches think this way. This is the way Saban used to do it. If you get past the 35, then you get in a 2-minute mode, although there's just 30 seconds left. Every Michigan State fan hated the result, but I didn't hate the approach or the strategy. You've had momentum in the first half, trying to regain some. You haven't really thrown deep a whole lot yet. You get a 15-yard run, you're at the 39-yard line. You only need about 27 yards to get into Jonathan Kim field goal range. So it all made sense. Dropping back, nobody's open, elongates the play. Stanton Ramil had Stewart. Stewart's a real good pass rusher over there, number 0. He did a good enough job for him for a moment, but you can't expect to keep him protected for the whole time. He's got great closing speed. Everybody saw what happened. I didn't hate Michigan State's aggressive on that. Cost them 3 points. Yeah, and what that also does is, I wrote about it in the rehash and analysis, but the middle 8 minutes of a game, people talk about that, especially in the NFL. If you win the toss and you defer and you get it in the second half, you look at the middle 8 minutes of that game. Michigan State had dominated the first 28 minutes. They drive, score touchdown, then the field goal, fumble field goal, then they come out and they scored at 16-7. Those middle 8 minutes, they were so productive. I'm not going to say they dominated those middle 8 minutes, but they capitalized, whereas Michigan State was missing opportunities all night. And in this sport, that'll end up hurting you. Even if you've won more plays throughout the course of the game, you don't win the game.
Yeah, this felt like an NFL game, to be honest with you. Where one team comes out and they look like they're dominant, and all of a sudden, the other team kind of bounces back, or there's a break here and there. But for Michigan State, to me, you made too many mistakes. You gave them too much momentum. You can't, you and I have talked about this week. On the way down, one of the things I told you is I just don't think that you can give them explosives. You don't want to give them things that they can really feel good about. And after they scored that initial touchdown, you give the offense is feeling good about itself. Then you give the defense something to feel good about, and then coming out of the, that momentum that they had coming out of half. The last thing you wanted is a Michigan defense or Michigan offense is feeling good about itself. And,
right.
And I think, with some of the stuff to Loveland, but again, Davis Warren was really good tonight.
Yeah, and last night when I heard when word came out that Davis Warren was going to be starting, I went back and watched Michigan's game against Texas. It was very ugly. They were blown out, but Davis Warren was not bad that day. And in the second half, the game was over, and they're going against some second stringers, but those are talented second stringers, and the coverage was tight. He made plays that day against Texas. They're rolling out, on the move, and I'm like, I taken some notes on him earlier, but went back and watched it again, and it gets to your point. It's like, man, they pulled a plug on him too early. Right. How much better would he be at this point? I'm not saying he's great, but how much better would they have been along through the course of the season, and would they have beaten Illinois if they'd have stuck with him? I'm done talking about coaching their team. As far as Michigan State, Malik Spencer bit twice, and Colston Loveland, their go-to guy. If you're ever gonna get beat biting and get undressed, make it be against Trevon Pendleton or something.
Right.
Not that guy. So it was one on that late leak, open touchdown, and then of course the halfback option, which was built to get someone to bite, and it did. And Malik Spencer, who's had a pretty good year, but he's been on about 3 or 4 of these now this year.
Yeah, the thing is, it's like
I wonder if they were going after 43 on those particular plays. Credit to Michigan, they've had a terrible year offensively, and they put some things in there today. They were back against the wall, and they came out with some gadgets when they needed them, and got it done.
Yeah, I wrote that story on Michigan State being prepared for Colston Loveland this week, because that guy is the guy, in terms of he's got twice as many targets, twice as many receptions, twice as many receiving touchdowns, twice as many everything Actually, he's got 3 times. He had 3 times more receiving yards than the second, the second leading receiver.
For a lot of reasons. He's real good, first
Yeah.
of all. Secondly, if the quarterbacks are not that great, they're not going to go deep or deep intermediate a whole lot. It's going to be short stuff, and that involves a tight end. Go ahead.
And they do a lot of stuff like the window dressing stuff to influence people, and then they do a nice job getting him the ball. And Michigan State was prepared for that, or that's what they talked about all week. And
Darius Snow had him covered on that one.
yeah,
Remember that one? And he was waiting for the late leak, and he leaked late, and he covered it, and it was incomplete. But then they scored the next play, quarterback sweep, I think.
The other thing too, besides like them getting him involved, I felt like Michigan State really did not affect the quarterback with there wasn't many times that he was running for his life or anything like that. And
this is a Michigan offensive line that's been real bad in pass protection. And Michigan State, you're right, did not affect it in the pass rush.
There was times where Michigan State looked really. I mean, there was times where like you could see that Maverick Hansen was juiced up or dialed up in this game, and he had a couple games. He had a couple times where he just beat guys. Where there's other instances of individual Michigan State defensive players beating their guy significantly, but for the most part, I felt like like this isn't like a Michigan offensive line that was completely deficient. Where you could just beat one guy all night long. It was kind of like some of the things that Michigan State has done, kind of poorly in the past, where one guy's making a mistake here, another guy's making a mistake there, but. They didn't really. Michigan State really never had Davis Warren running for his life or affecting him. He had a couple scrambles where he helped out a little bit, helped out move that offense. But I think when Michigan State goes back and looks at this as a defense, the two things that are really going to disappoint them is they let Colston Loveland, the guy that is the all-world tight end. We all know about that, but when you don't have like receivers on the edge that are really threatening you vertically, it's not like one of the things I wrote about. It's not like the Oregon guy, where you've got
Ferguson.
where you've got these skill guys. I mean, Ferguson's going to be an NFL guy. He got loose on Michigan State for some deep passes. That's because you're concerned about the outside skill guys. Same thing with Maryland. The Wade dude from Maryland, he got vertical a few times on Michigan State because you're worried about Caden Prather and Ty Felton. This one out here, Samaj Morgan's a good receiver, but Colston Loveland is the show. And that's a guy that you can't forget about. The other thing is they knew that Alex Ojiri was going to be in that part of the run game, and this is one of the few times this year that I feel like Michigan State against a team in their own weight class, against a team that didn't have significant advantages, really didn't measure up to the challenge of that presented by that guy. And there hasn't been many of those.
They stopped Edwards and they stopped Mullings, but like you said, the +1 situation when a quarterback's keeping it.
And they knew it was coming.
Yeah, and Michigan, maybe they just blocked it better when that was happening, got to the edge, and those were game-changing plays. And Michigan had to win, and they made the plays to win. It's tough when you're Michigan State and you're losing games by 21, 24 points. Games like this, of course, are harder because it's close, and and not only was it there to win, Michigan State was dominating at times,
right.
And it was going by a script that a lot of people thought. Not myself. I was kind of like, wow, Michigan State is doing what a lot of people said they were going to do, and it was impressive. But they didn't get points out of it, of course, and that screwed everything up trying to win.
And I don't think Michigan was, the people that are saying that script, they were talking about how bad Michigan is, and I don't just because they're not the number one defense in the country, just because they don't have, someone stealing signs. All those things, it doesn't mean they're terrible. There's still a good defense there. There's still good personnel.
The talent flashes. That's what I wrote in the pre-snap read. You can say Michigan's beleaguered and on their way down. I'm like, man, the talent flashes, though. And they played well for 2 quarters at Washington. They played 2 quarters here against a mediocre USC team. And they were able to play well here for about 2.5 quarters. That's 3 quarters. That's what they needed. And not surprising that they were able to dial that up. It's just you feel bad for Michigan State because, man, they did some things physically and paid the price. And Carter, man, I've never seen him play that hard, and he was effective.
Yeah, and he wanted this because he's been injured here. Yeah. He's a guy that grew up rooting for Michigan. I don't know, something happened in the recruiting process where he was kind of, but anyways, he played his A game, and it was great to see that. Guys played hard. The question moving forward is you've got Indiana, who's top tier in the Big Ten. So
they haven't trailed all year. They get 500 yards on everybody.
Yeah. So how do you, as Michigan State, you wanted this game, you thought you were going to get it, you had it right there, and it slipped away from you. How do you kind of go back to the drawing board, get re-energized, and play a team that I personally think that the rest of the teams in the Big Ten need to get beat by in year one. They need to go and spend all offseason doing the studies on them and try to figure out how to stop them. But it's really obviously hard to play those guys in the first time you see him, and then not only that, but you're playing without your most physical linebacker because of the targeting call
for a half, right?
For a half, but
we didn't talk about that.
But
what about the scuffle, Paul?
But given what Indiana's done, a half might not. I mean, it might be over by halftime based on what they've done so far.
So the scuffle at the end of the game, I didn't. It looked to me like Anthony Jones kind of. I don't know what was going on, but it looked like he kind of started it first time.
He didn't.
He didn't.
No, and you know what? I'll say this: I watched the Michigan State soccer game the other night, the one that DeMartin, and there was more of a scuffle in the soccer game, which no one watched besides me.
I watched it.
Well, I was writing the story, but there's more of a scuffle in that game than there was in this game. But
I think this one was worse, Paul. This one, did you see Khalil? What's the running back's name? Mullings? Khalil Mullings?
I was just looking at.
Did you see him kicking a guy on the? It looked like a Michigan State support staff member.
No, I did not see that.
Yeah, so he was he was doing something down here, and I can't say for sure he was kicking him, but you guys have all seen it by now. There was something going on, and they're trying to stop him. I'm guessing it's a Michigan State support staff member that was in the middle trying to break it up. He goes down, and that part of it I didn't see the first time. The viewers all did. It's been discussed on the message board now. That wasn't very pretty.
The one that's not what I thought you were talking about, and what I've seen is obviously the Anthony Jones and the Colston Loveland. Colston Loveland tapped him he got him with his helmet.
At the end of the game? I didn't see that.
When stuff was going on, Colston Loveland, it was like a weak headbutt. It wasn't like they're both wearing helmets, and then Anthony Jones threw him threw him on the ground. But it's pretty obviously that who instigated it. This is nothing that rises beyond, regardless. I haven't seen the support staff stuff, but I'm saying in terms of the guys on the field, the football players, it's a scuffle.
It's a little scuffle.
Not a big deal.
Everyone's going to be talking about it though, Paul.
I know, but it's not a big deal. I mean, to me, it's like assuming that the Michigan State staff guy is not hurt, and
he looked like he was okay. He got up and he was a little.
But this to me was like not any more impactful than a basketball shoving match.
Right. So Michigan State 4-4, like you said, Indiana coming in, and so far Indiana's been better than Michigan. Maybe I don't know.
Indiana reminds me of the 2021 Michigan State team. They're just going. I mean, they're more dominant, obviously, but they're running through everybody, and I'm just waiting. I'm waiting for them to. I mean, at some point they're going to have to win a close game.
And the numbers are amazing. The numbers remind me, just the numbers, not the program. But the numbers remind me of what Oklahoma did when Josh Heupel was the quarterback and won the Heisman, when Oklahoma had been down for 10 or 15 years and won the national title that year, I think. I'm not saying Indiana's going to do that, but I'm like, man, someone's going to keep this team under 500 yards. Anyway, maybe Michigan will beat Indiana in a couple weeks. I don't know, but so far Indiana's been better than Michigan. So Michigan State has to get off the mat, lose this game, and go play a better team next week at home. And so 4-4, Michigan State's trying to get to 6 wins, trying to go to a bowl game. That would be a nice reward for a program that's also trying to get off the mat. This would have been a huge step in that direction. You're still playing Purdue. Rutgers looks beleaguered at the end of the year. So theoretically, there should be 2 wins there. And if that gets you into the Quick Lane Bowl or whatever that's called in Detroit, that sounds good to me because we won't have to pay a lot of money to go to Florida and everything. Everybody wants to go to Florida. But if you're not in the playoff, all the other bowl games, there's some Florida bowl games a little bit, but there's not a huge difference if you're 6-6 or 8-4. Just get to a bowl game, right? And getting the 2 wins is a big thing here in the last few weeks. Can they get one with Indiana? They'll be an underdog. At Illinois, that's going to be a nice scrap right there, Michigan State and Illinois. So Michigan State's got some teams. They've got a lot to play for, and I suspect they will keep their nose to the grindstone, to use a cliche, and play some good football going forward. But next week's going to be real difficult.
The thing I'm going to be looking at with Indiana, I don't know what the score is going to be, but can Michigan State come out and run the football effectively for a 3rd straight week against a really good run defense?
Indiana's defense is good.
You know what it is? It's a complete buy-in. These guys have self-belief, and when they believe in their coaching staff, obviously he's disciplined. Signetti's kind of a hairball kind of guy, but he's he's got a good system. They obviously believe in themselves, and they believe that if they execute their system on both sides of the ball, obviously, that they're going to win games, and they've done that.
They destroyed Nebraska. Didn't you look what Nebraska did against Ohio State today?
Yeah, I think Nebraska was overhyped for that game.
For the Indiana game?
Yeah, I mean, it was like one of those game day type things. It was a game of the week or whatever. There's a lot of hoopla. Nebraska's back, blah blah blah. They laid an egg.
56-7.
Are they late in that? I mean, there's nothing short of that. I was on a couple of radio shows in Nebraska this week, and people were melting down, talking about how bad the Huskers are. And then, I feel like Ohio State was kind of, they had one of those games for them. But I want to see Michigan State run the football. Two straight weeks of running the football
against good defenses.
And then when you think about that, I didn't realize that Illinois' run defense was so bad. So in terms of statistically, and it might change because it's weird to me, a team that is pretty good at running the football is not very good at stopping the run. And, Brett Bielema being a defensive guy or whatever, I thought when he took over the program, the run defense was pretty good. But I'm really interested to see, can Michigan State keep on building? Can they continue to get a good run game operation? And if Nate Carter runs like this, they could be solid. But if you can run the football and you get continued growth with Aiden Childs, Nick Marsh, they still got to get Jack Velling. Jack Velling's got.
They went to Velling more today. Marsh is the guy that didn't go to enough, Paul.
I agree.
If I can be Monday morning quarterback.
No, I mean, if you're looking at a situation where they're playing man-to-man, that's the one guy that's a man-to-man beater.
Well, they didn't play a lot of man-to-man. They did on that fourth down play. For the most part, they were playing some zones.
But he's a guy you can trust to get 50-50 balls.
Yeah,
if Aiden Childs has to take, if Aiden Childs has to take a risk, and he's got to take it's got to be a deal where he trusts his guy to get the ball. The two guys I want. Montori Foster did a nice job adjusting to that one ball out there. So Montori Foster's made tough plays on the sideline, but that's one guy, and 1A and 1B and Nick Marsh and Montori Foster. And then once you get those guys going, then I think you can, in the run game going, then you can get Jack Velling. I just feel like, and I'm guilty of this because I posted yesterday that I thought Jack Velling could have a big game in this, but they want Jack Velling to get more work in the red zone, and it feels like they're trying to force it instead of letting it be organic.
Michigan State went with a lot of screen game today. Or opening drive, they had a nice one over there to Nate Carter for a nice gain. Went to it a lot. Maybe they didn't feel like they could protect for a long 7-step drop and go deep against these guys. Michigan State this year has done a lot of maximum protection, 2 receivers out, deep shots, and today they thought they could run the ball and do some screen game, and it was productive, but it didn't result in points. The explosives, stretching the field, which is what they want the program to be a part of. Today they didn't really operate that part of it.
Yeah, and I think
they didn't probe that part.
I think one of the things they thought from watching.
I'll have to look at it though. Maybe they had some guys. Maybe they were, trying some deep routes and they were covered. So I don't want to say that completely. I don't want to be an absolute there. That's my first glance. Go ahead, Paul.
Yeah, I feel like. With some of what they've seen on film, they probably thought a lot of some of that screen stuff might result in bigger plays. But you go back to the Illinois game and the PIs and that kind of stuff, and you wonder, that's another regret.
Yeah.
If your regrets the big three. So I'll add that to it. They didn't take any deep shots.
Now, of course, Michigan has come back to the pack. They're not very good this year. They were pretty good last year, really good team last year. Michigan State has built themselves up to the point where they're mad that they didn't beat Michigan on the road.
Right.
I'm not saying this is a great Michigan team, but at times they can still be pretty good.
It's a good Michigan State team.
Michigan State
when they're playing in all phases. But again, you can't have missed field goals like from a chip shot for Jonathan Kim. That's hurt. You can't have. You can't have some of the leakage on defense, some of the a couple missed tackles, guys not getting off blocks. The Malik Spencer stuff. He's too veteran for that to happen. That's a lack of, honestly, for a guy like that, who's a pretty smart player and he does watch a lot of film, that's a lack of discipline on his part, and that kind of gets you. Sometimes that happens in rivalry games.
And I know games don't always unfold the same if this happens and that happens, but if you make that Jonathan Kim field goal and you take a knee at the end of the first half and they don't get that field goal, then at the end of the game, Michigan State's driving for a game-winning field goal. That's how close this was. I know it might not have unfolded that way. If Michigan had the ball back up 2, they might have been more aggressive trying to go downfield. But I wouldn't have bet much on Michigan's, even needing to move the ball at their own 20-yard line with a 2-point lead protecting it. So that's how close this one was.
And I'm not sure the rollout stuff. I just feel like sometimes the bad things can happen. Like some of the.
And it wasn't a rollout. He was flushed out.
Yeah, that's right.
He's elongating the play, being aggressive. That's kind of when he's.
I like some of the quick passing they've done.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not going to second guess him because that was kind of one of those weird things where, like a quarterback gets his arm hit.
I'm not saying they should have taken a knee. I'm just saying if they had, which is not their.
I don't think they should. I don't think. I
thought
don't
it was
have a
right
problem
to
with
go
that.
for it. I don't have a problem with it either.
It's just that it's on. To me, it's not like he did something wrong.
I'm just saying those two field goals were the difference between Michigan State having a chance to win it with a field goal late. Maybe they miss a field goal if they do that anyway. But
yeah, I don't think so. I mean, Jonathan Kinn's been nails this year. He had the 46-yarder after missing the short one. That was just unfortunate. So it's not something that Childs did wrong. It's unfortunate. It's just similar when you're throwing as a quarterback and a ball gets tipped. And it ends up being an interception. It's like one of those things. It's a hazard of the job. It's not necessarily the quarterback's fault. It's just something that happens, and it was really poor timing.
Is the thing just shut off?
No, it didn't shut off.
All right,
we should close it.
We'll close it up now. Michigan State's had an entertaining season. They made a lot of progress in a lot of ways, especially in physicality on both sides of the ball and the line of scrimmage today. The line of scrimmage, they're pretty good, and got a chance at this point to go to a bowl game. And at this point, Michigan State disappointed that they didn't go 2-2 in the so-called gauntlet. But at the beginning of the year, the gauntlet did not include a fifth game against Indiana. No one thought that'd be as tough as it's going to be. So Michigan State is going to have a puncher's chance in that one. And then the ones you need to collect on: Purdue, Illinois, Rutgers.
Yeah, Rutgers is doable.
And Purdue's not playing well, so Rutgers doable. It's going to be cold at the end of the year, Thanksgiving weekend. They're still going to have some things to play for, and they deserve some good things to happen to them, in my opinion, for as hard as they play. I've got a lot of respect for a lot of those players on the team. Anything else, Paul?
Yeah, just one last thing. Like Mel Tucker in his first year, they went here and they beat Michigan, and that COVID year. And you know what? There's no fans in the stands, and they went out and they got curb stomped by Iowa the next week. All the talking leading up to that Iowa game is like they beat Michigan, and they got, like I said, curb stomped because they were not physical enough. And, that was like Rocky Lombardi had some issues, but most of it came down to physicality at the point of attack. Iowa just clowned Michigan State's offensive line, and then, that Michigan State could not stop what Iowa does, those basic bread and butter plays. This year, Michigan State loses to Michigan, but I come away feeling better about the direction of the program because we've seen Michigan State make significant progress in terms of physicality and like those things that you can reference. And we saw at the beginning of the D'Antonio era where, defense is trending up, accountability is trending up, team first kind of stuff is trending up. And it's just like, I feel like some of the stuff that they did today, running the football, those are things that you have to reestablish as a program. You got to do it on your own terms, and then also playing quality defense. Did the defense play great today? No, they made some mistakes that they'd like to fix, but that was still a respectable defense that played hard and made plays, and that you can be proud of if you're a Michigan State fan. It's not an embarrassment.
The path toward consistency is a lot of the things that they're showing.
Yeah,
physicality, the line of scrimmage, establishing that run, stopping the run. I suspect that as Joe Rossi coaches an entire roster for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and the things are drilled into the players, looking at the right things.
Eye discipline.
Eye discipline, and just those basic fundamentals. Those will be driven home better and better and better. Malik Spencer's got talent, but I suspect that if this were year number 3 for him in the Rossi system, he might have been less susceptible for those mistakes.
Yeah,
and Spencer played really well at Oregon, and it's had a good season, and I'm sure no one feels worse about it than he does.
He's a good kid. I like him.
Yeah, but Cal Halliday's a very team-oriented and good, solid player. Everybody knows that. But in the Boston College game, he got caught trying to do someone else's job, and he ended up blocking Spencer, and that run got out down the sideline for a touchdown, and it was a big reason, it was a big play in that game and a reason that they lost. Halliday, no one can doubt that he's committed to the program and all those things. 4 years under Rossi, he might be less likely to try to do someone else's job, as they say. So over the course of time, I think the things where Michigan State came unglued a little bit on defense today, all defenses are going to be a little susceptible to a halfback option here and there. That's why people try those plays. But over the course of time, I think you're going to see fewer of those mistakes from Joe Rossi's defense.
You talk about Rossi being in a program for 4 years. You've got veteran players in a program for 4 years, and so that stuff that Rossi's trying to teach on a week-to-week basis is being drilled home by veteran players. Like a Cal Halliday, if he'd been playing for Joe Rossi for four years, he'd be drilling that into true freshmen, and like that D'Antonio system, that Narduzzi, Harlan Barnett, Mike Tressel, all that when they were really rolling, that really got established because there was ownership on the player level, and it's really hard to do in year one where everyone's learning and they're fighting their past.
Things were grim here for a while for the Michigan fans. It was quiet, and they started booing the Michigan team there a little bit. For a moment, it looked like Michigan State had a great chance, and they did have a great chance to really turn their season and their program and also make Michigan second-guess their world. Didn't get it done, didn't happen. Ran the ball pretty well, did some good things. Childs didn't quite have the next step playmaking today that they needed to get it over the top. And Michigan State comes away with it still saying, coulda, shoulda, woulda at 4-4. At times looking like better than a 4-4 team this week and last week, but they got four more games to try to prove that they are worthy of postseason and some extra practices as they try to get step number one in the Jonathan Smith era. Anything else, Paul? For Paul Konyndyk, my name is Jim Comparoni. I've been watching the VCast with the Spartans at Michigan Stadium in Ann Arbor for SpartanMag.com.